What's going on, everyone? GoodMicWork Commentaries back at you with episode 528. I've got to be honest, I was kind of somewhat hoping we were going to have, and I was expecting to have, a lackluster week of TV on Raw and SmackDown, which I thought would allow me to work on other projects, and I would just come up here and give you guys a one-off episode on something minor that took place during the week. But it turned out to be a pretty busy news week in wrestling, specifically in WWE. So what episode 528 is going to be about is primarily what took place on Monday Night Raw and SmackDown Live this week, and focusing mainly on Monday Night Raw, because a lot of big news, huge news, came out of Monday Night Raw. SmackDown had its moments, it was okay, but I thought Raw was the much better show this week, and definitely the much bigger news-making show, that's for sure. So before we get going here, just make sure you subscribe to this channel if you have not yet already. Smash that like button. Let's try to get at least 200 or 300 likes on this video. And if you want to download this episode in podcast form, hit up my website, GoodMicWorkCommentaries.com. You'll be able to download this episode over there, and check that description. It's loaded with links and goodies. Let's not waste any more time and jump right into what we're going to get into this week, and start with this past week's Monday Night Raw. Now, I was up here doing a live stream on Monday. I did not feel well, but I was still up here doing it anyway. It was a pretty fun stream, and we definitely had no shortage of things to talk about because some huge news dropped on Monday Night Raw, and we're going to start right at the top there with the big title match change for the Royal Rumble. We saw Braun Strowman last week on Raw during that interaction with Brock Lesnar that was absolutely terrible. Now, Braun Strowman still isn't, I guess, 100% cleared, or he wasn't at the time, and so they didn't want to do any sort of physical confrontation with him because he really wasn't ready to go. But the whole segment with him forgetting his lines and then not attacking Brock when Brock was circling the ring, I just thought made Braun look terrible, and I've completely lost interest. In 1 year's time, I have gone from having a raging, mega huge boner over this guy to really not caring about him at all. And to be perfectly honest, I wasn't really looking forward to Braun Strowman versus Brock Lesnar again, because I want Brock Lesnar to go into WrestleMania as champion so he can drop the belt clean to somebody. I don't really want to see him lose it before then, because I think it'll carry more weight at WrestleMania. So in order for him to get there as champion, that means he's got to beat Braun Strowman again. Why the fuck do they want to do that? So this past week on Monday Night Raw, we saw a change, a major change. Braun Strowman is out. There was a situation backstage. He was chasing around Baron Corbin all over the backstage area. I really liked how he found Baron Corbin when Elias sang to Braun Strowman, letting him know where Corbin was, and Corbin had jumped in the back of Vince McMahon's limo that showed up earlier on, and Vince was being very particular about the cleanliness of the limo, even making the chauffeur wipe off a little scratch or smudge or something on the side of the car. So Baron Corbin is in the back of the limo, and Braun Strowman smashes the windows out, and then he rips the door off of the limo. Baron Corbin winds up getting away. Vince McMahon shows up. He sees the carnage. He assesses the carnage. And he's so pissed off that he fines Braun Strowman like $100,000 and then pulls him from his Royal Rumble match against Brock Lesnar. So that whole deal with the limo was done to set up getting Braun Strowman out of that match. Now, there's some speculation as to why WWE did this. The first most obvious one must be that Braun isn't cleared, correct? He had surgery recently. They might have been rolling the dice on this match anyway. Maybe they felt, or the doctors advised him not to wrestle, so they're pulling him from the match. That's probably the more likely option, but there are also some reports that I was reading today that WWE pulled him out of that match in order to protect him, because they don't want him to have to lose to Brock Lesnar again. And I understand that completely. I'm glad that they're doing that, because I don't want to see Braun lose to Brock again either. But why the fuck did they not think of this before they booked this match? Did they intend on pulling Braun Strowman out of there? Do you really think that today's average WWE fan would be more inclined to buy a ticket because of Braun Strowman and Brock Lesnar on the card as opposed to Brock Lesnar and Finn Balor? Brock Lesnar and Finn Balor is going to be an awesome match. I don't know why they would mislead the fans to try to quote-unquote sell tickets, so I don't know how accurate that report is. And then as far as protecting Braun Strowman, great. You shouldn't put him in that match or that situation where he's going to get beat. And if you are realizing that, why are you realizing this now instead of 4 weeks ago or whenever you first booked this fucking match? It just blows my mind. Like, these things come to WWE at the last minute when the fans are screaming it in their face daily. If you don't intend on putting the belt on Braun Strowman, stop putting him in countless matches with Brock where he can get beat. And a lot of fans have been comparing Braun Strowman to the Big Show. He's kind of morphing into that modern-day Big Show, and he's going to be used as this big monster heel or babyface that can be interjected into main event storylines pretty much whenever they want. They did the same thing with Big Show for years. Sometimes he'd be on the card doing absolutely nothing, and then out of the blue, he'd be main eventing pay-per-views for the title. And I really don't want to see Braun Strowman go down that road where 10 years from now, we're witnessing his 96th babyface turn. We can't have that. And if the motherfucker starts crying on TV, I'm going to lose it. So I don't like what I'm really seeing from Braun Strowman or from WWE's use of Braun Strowman. So, I'm torn. On one hand, I'm very happy that they pulled him out of this match and they realized that another loss to Brock Lesnar is not going to do him any favors. But at the same time, it makes me concerned for his future and what they have planned for him going forward. I still believe, even in Braun Strowman's diminished and desperate state, I still believe as a fan that he will one day be world champion in the WWE, Universal Champion, WWE Champion, whatever. That day will come for him. It's just he doesn't have that feel of that awesome badass monster that he had a year or so ago when he was feuding with Roman Reigns. That guy was so entertaining. I miss that Braun Strowman. And he's gone now, and it feels like he's never going to be back, and the fans are never going to feel that way about him again because WWE has kind of ruined it. So I guess for the time being, I'm happy that he's out of the match because, like I said, I wasn't really looking forward to it. And what WWE did to replace him was very interesting and very awesome. Vince went out to the ring, I guess, to explain the fate of the Universal title match now at the Royal Rumble and who will face Brock Lesnar. He winds up being joined by John Cena and Baron Corbin and Drew McIntyre and Finn Balor. This all leads to Vince McMahon announcing a fatal four-way main event between those four stars. The winner will then go on to the Royal Rumble to face Brock Lesnar. And when you look at the field, we were talking about this on the stream on Monday, it was starting to feel, even in that opening promo, that it was going to be Finn Balor, the way they were setting everything up. John Cena was the first one to hit the ring, and a lot of people were freaking out. And I was even speculating in my own head. I was saying to myself, well, this is a big show at the Royal Rumble. This is a stadium show. It's at Chase Field. Maybe WWE feels like Brock Lesnar versus John Cena would be the bigger marquee type of match for a show like this. But at the same time, I'm thinking to myself that the McMahons were just out on TV 3 or 4 weeks ago on Monday Night Raw vowing to change the business, and they're going to start listening to the fans, and we're going to see new matchups and new opponents and new stars and new pushes and all this shit. And then they're going to go right back to doing John Cena and Brock Lesnar again. That seemed completely ludicrous. So in my head, I was trying to rule out who was going to win that fatal four-way. And I'm like, I don't really see it being John Cena. At some point in John Cena's career, probably in the next year or so, he's going to have to win that 17th world title. And I think he's going to do that by winning the Universal title because it's a belt he's never held before, and he's going to need that on his resume. But I don't feel it right now. I don't feel like he would be defeating Brock at the Royal Rumble and winning that title. And I also don't feel like John Cena is in a position to go into WrestleMania to be winning any world titles either. So I think John Cena's 17th title run is going to come sometime in the future, but not right now. So I kind of ruled him out. We all know the Applebee's waiter Corbin is not going to be winning this fatal four-way, and he is not going to be going to Royal Rumble to face Brock Lesnar for the title. So we knew it wasn't going to be that bald bastard. That left Drew McIntyre and Finn Balor. Well, if you put Drew in there, then you got a heel versus heel situation, and I don't know if that's really what you want, leaving Finn Balor as the obvious choice. Now, WWE also threw Balor and the fans a curveball backstage when Jinder Mahal runs into Vince McMahon and says that he wants to face Brock Lesnar. So Vince allows Jinder to select one opponent out of the four to face one-on-one. If he beats him, then he will replace that person in the fatal four-way main event. And Jinder Mahal chooses Finn Balor. So we get Finn Balor versus Jinder Mahal one-on-one on Raw. And this was a pretty long match and a pretty hard-fought match in which Balor won. He beat Jinder Mahal and retained his spot in the fatal four-way. So again, it was more evidence that WWE's trying to, as quickly as they can, give Finn Balor as much momentum as possible. He did something similar when he hit the main roster back in the summer of 2016 before he got injured. That match with Roman Reigns, I think that was a double match night for him or something like that. So this is kind of reminiscent of that. And after that hard-fought battle with Jinder, now he goes into the fatal four-way main event against three guys that are all bigger than him and stronger than him, and he winds up winning in a really good match. That was a fun fatal four-way main event. I enjoyed it. And how did Finn Balor win? By hitting his finisher on John fucking Cena and pinning him. That was great. So WWE feels like they're trying to put Balor on the fast track as to being a worthy opponent for Brock Lesnar, having him win a couple of really hard matches and then defeating Cena, WWE's previous poster boy, clean with his finisher in the middle of the ring, and then have John Cena get on the mic and put him over. Wow. A lot of speculation as to why WWE made this decision as well. Now, number one, I think it's safe to say, I think we have to see the Demon at the Royal Rumble. We have to, right? The Demon is undefeated. If you really want to make the fans think there's a chance that Finn Balor can win, he's got to go in there as the Demon, because the Demon has never lost in WWE. I know he's lost in NXT, but on the main roster, he hasn't lost. I think that would add a lot to the match, and we know the match is going to be good. I am so much more excited for Finn Balor versus Brock Lesnar than I was for Brock Lesnar versus Braun Strowman, because every time Brock Lesnar has a match with a small opponent, it's fucking match of the year type of shit. Great match with CM Punk years ago at SummerSlam, great match with AJ Styles, great match with Daniel Bryan, and I know Finn Balor will be no different. It's going to be a fun match. Do I think Finn Balor is going to win? Right now, I'm going to say no. I just don't. I think it will be too quick. I don't know why WWE called this audible. I still, as much as I'm happy that they're going with this match, why didn't they go with it from the start? I think if Finn Balor goes in there and gives Brock a good match, just like AJ did and just like Daniel Bryan did, because remember, neither of those two guys beat Brock Lesnar either. So if Finn Balor loses to Brock Lesnar, I don't think it's WWE treating Finn Balor badly. It's because he's not going to beat Brock Lesnar. Everybody loved the match at Survivor Series between Brock and Daniel Bryan, even though Daniel Bryan didn't win. It didn't seem to hurt Daniel Bryan any at all on the SmackDown brand, because he's just as over and just as awesome as he was, prior to that happening. What I'm hoping here, my best case scenario anyway, is that Finn Balor gives a really hard fought effort against Brock Lesnar, comes very close to defeating him, just like AJ did, just like Daniel Bryan did, but in the end falls short. Then Brock Lesnar goes into WrestleMania, drops that belt to somebody clean. I don't care if it's Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins, fucking Nicholas. I don't care. He just needs to drop that goddamn belt clean and give that belt back to Monday Night Raw so it can be defended on a regular basis. Then you hold off Finn Balor's next title shot until the summer, and you have Finn Balor face, let's say Universal Champion Seth Rollins in the main event of SummerSlam, and what a full circle moment that would be for Finn Balor to win back the Universal title 3 years after he won it the first time in the main event against the same opponent. Don't you think that would make for kind of a nice story for Finn Balor? So I'm hoping this is the beginning of that. And WWE better goddamn recognize that they need to do something with this guy, because he's always been good, always been capable, always been over, but they've never put him in any really big match situations after he got injured. And considering some of the stories we've heard about WWE definitely being slightly concerned with All Elite Wrestling. Apparently they offered sweetheart deals to the Young Bucks and Cody Rhodes and Kenny Omega. They've really been out there trying to recruit some of this talent. They haven't been able to score any of it. And as of right now, it's starting to look more and more like Kenny Omega will be going to All Elite Wrestling and not WWE. Finn Balor is one of those names that the fans have been wondering whether or not he should maybe leave when his contract is up, because WWE is just putting him in the same situations every week. He's kind of floundering. He's on TV a lot. He's a semi-main event guy, but he's not where he was. And it might be better for him to go back to the independent and international scene where he can flourish. And if WWE wants to make sure they keep him around, they're going to have to make him a main eventer. And when you hear about some of the negotiations that took place between Triple H and the Young Bucks, WWE might actually find themselves in a situation where they have to promise certain things that they have not been used to promising people in the past. Apparently there was some sort of out clause in the contract negotiations with the Young Bucks that if they were not happy with their push or their spot on the card, they could get out of their contracts. AJ Styles' deal is rumored to be up as well here in a couple of months. I don't know if he's re-signed a new deal or not, but he's been there a little bit over 3 years. And if he re-signs, WWE probably wants to make sure that they don't lose him. If Kenny Omega came in, they'd probably have to promise him something. So maybe with Finn Balor now being at least pushed for the time being, maybe that's WWE's way of hanging on to him and saying, hey, if you do re-sign with us when your contract is up, we're actually going to take you seriously and at least make you as big a star on Raw as AJ Styles is over on SmackDown. And I think maybe, just maybe, in the future for Finn Balor, by the time we get to SummerSlam, he can get to the top of the mountain again. So for me as a wrestling fan, I can't be happier that Braun Strowman has been checked out and Finn Balor has been checked in. We had another pretty big surprise on Monday Night Raw as well in the form of a new Intercontinental Champion being crowned. Bobby Lashley won the title, defeating Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins in a triple threat match. I think he hit Dean Ambrose with a spear and got the pin in a very surprising finish. The triple threat match was actually good. The Fatal 4-Way was good, and the triple threat was good. And I didn't see that coming. It came completely out of nowhere. I don't even know why Ambrose won the belt if he was just going to cough it up to Lashley. They should have just had Lashley beat Rollins at TLC, and then Lashley can be Intercontinental Champion, and Ambrose and Rollins can go off feuding on their own, because that feud and that rivalry between the two has so much history and runs so deep, you really don't need any sort of title belt involved there. So they could have done this weeks ago. It's one of those things, much like the Strowman thing. Why does WWE realize this so far after the fact? Why didn't they realize that Ambrose and Rollins didn't need the title when this shit started? They could have got the belt off of Rollins and had somebody else run with it like a Bobby Lashley, and Rollins and Ambrose can be tearing it up in pay-per-views without the fucking belt. I don't know what takes WWE so long to realize this shit. It also raises a lot of questions of the future of all three of these guys, because Bobby Lashley has been all up in Seth's business the past few weeks. They've had issues with each other. So now does Rollins continue feuding with Lashley for the Intercontinental title, or does he continue his feud with Dean Ambrose? Are they going to have some sort of a gimmick match in February or March? Because don't forget, we've got Elimination Chamber and Fastlane coming up. They probably will both, or at least one of them will be involved in the chamber match, possibly, depending on who wins the Royal Rumble. And they might have some sort of a big blow-off at Fastlane. Maybe something similar to what Stone Cold Steve Austin and Triple H did back at No Way Out 2001 in that 3 Stages of Hell match. They could maybe do something like that, especially if Rollins earns a title match against Brock, whether he wins the Royal Rumble or whether he wins the Elimination Chamber or does something to earn that title shot. He might still have one more pay-per-view match to wrestle, so they could finally blow off him and Ambrose right before WrestleMania. So that's an option there as well. As far as Bobby Lashley goes, believe it or not, I'm actually happy that they put the Intercontinental title on him. It's a belt he's never held before. They're trying with Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley came in horribly with no charisma as a smiling babyface. They put him in ridiculous segments with Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. He did some ridiculous shit in the ring. He tried to sing at one point with Elias. It was bad. So WWE did the right thing. They didn't keep doing that with him and pretend he's the most over babyface in the company like Roman Reigns. They actually changed him up. They tried to give him an attitude. They gave him a mouthpiece in Lio Rush. They changed up his look a little bit with the sunglasses and the vest and trying to make him a little bit more vicious and a badass type of heel. It hasn't been great, but it's definitely been a lot better than he was when he was a babyface. So now he's the Intercontinental Champion. Him being champion benefits him a hell of a lot more than it does Ambrose or Rollins, because both of those guys are over. And if he goes on to have other matches now and other opponents, he could have a decent-sized run here. You know, the title has been somewhat hot-potatoed in the past couple of months, so Bobby Lashley, now that he has the belt, he should probably hold on to that thing at least past WrestleMania. But the way things go today, who knows? He could drop that belt in 2 weeks on fucking Raw, for all we know. But now that Lashley has it, I say give him a run. It'll be interesting to see where all three of these guys go from here. My number one goal and my hope is that Seth Rollins somehow finds his way into WrestleMania to face Brock. He doesn't necessarily have to win the Royal Rumble to make that happen. There's other ways to get that title shot. So in the meantime, I just hope he wraps up business with Ambrose, with Lashley, and has his sights set on a big match at WrestleMania. Because if it's not Rollins, I don't know who the hell it's going to be. We also had things starting to heat up between Sasha Banks and Ronda Rousey on Monday Night Raw. They put the two of them in a tag team match, of course, because every time you have two babyfaces facing each other at an upcoming pay-per-view, you absolutely must put them in tag team matches together during the build. And Sasha and Ronda made pretty quick work of Nia Jax and Tamina. Charlie Caruso came into the ring to interview the two of them after the match, and that's when you saw the conflict. Ronda says that Sasha is going to be a great loser when she beats her, and Sasha takes exception to that. They start arguing for a while. The argument spills over into the backstage area where you have Natalya and Bayley taking sides. Bayley's on the side of Sasha, of course, and then Natalya is on the side of Ronda Rousey. Sasha Banks even flashed the 4 horsewomen sign in Ronda's face during Raw. This could be the beginning of that eventual 4 horsewomen feud that we could see in the future. We all know we're going to see that sometime. Maybe this is them laying the groundwork for that later on in 2019. We know Ronda Rousey is going to be involved in a very big match at WrestleMania for the title. I don't expect Sasha Banks to beat her at the Royal Rumble. A lot of fans think that maybe Becky or Charlotte or both could hit the ring and cost Ronda the match. That is possible, but I don't see it happening. I think you should save that for WrestleMania. Now, if you want to have the 4 horsewomen all show up and beat the shit out of Ronda Rousey together, you can do that at WrestleMania. If Ronda Rousey goes into Mania to face Becky Lynch or face Charlotte somehow, and then you have Becky, Charlotte, Sasha, and Bayley all hitting the ring, fucking up Ronda Rousey, helping whoever her opponent is win the title. That might be fun. And then Ronda's friends can get involved. And then there you go. You got the big feud between the horsewomen. So if you're going to do some sort of a big angle here, I think you save that for WrestleMania. And this is just another stop along the way. This is just another way to get Ronda some history with another 4 horsewomen. I wouldn't even be surprised if after Ronda Rousey and Sasha Banks face at the Royal Rumble, or even prior to that, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Ronda Rousey versus Bayley on like the Go Home Raw or something like that. So either before or after the Royal Rumble, I think Ronda Rousey has to have a match with Bayley as well on Monday Night Raw. Then she can pretty much have an issue with all 4 of them. And from there, all you really got to do is incorporate Ronda's group, and that might make for some pretty fun TV in 2019. What do y'all think about that? Do you think this Ronda and Sasha match is just a way to eventually get to that in the future? And I'm still very curious as to what Ronda Rousey is going to do at WrestleMania. We know Becky Lynch is facing Asuka at the Rumble. We really have to see Ronda Rousey versus either Becky Lynch or Charlotte at WrestleMania. They have to figure out a way to do that. Right now, it feels like the only way to achieve that is to have one of those ladies win the Royal Rumble, but Becky Lynch already has a title match, and she's likely not going to be in the Women's Rumble. She could still show up there. It's possible, but as of right now, she's not in it, which leaves Charlotte, which means Charlotte could win the Rumble and then jump to Raw to face Ronda Rousey. That's possible, but still, my heart is with Becky Lynch. That's what I hope they do, and we've just got to sit back and wait and figure out how they're going to do all this shit at WrestleMania. But for the time being, the opponent in front of Ronda Rousey is Sasha, and I'm looking forward to the match. I think much like Finn Balor and Brock Lesnar, it's going to be a good match. It's going to be a fun match. Taking into consideration Ronda's amazing selling ability, I think Sasha Banks is going to take Ronda to the absolute limit and give her a really good match. Just like AJ gave Brock, just like Bryan gave Brock, but in the end, she's going to be tapping out to Ronda Rousey, and I really don't have any problem with that. Staying on the subject of the women and the women's division, why don't we talk about Alexa Bliss? Now, she had a pretty interesting Moment of Bliss segment on Monday Night Raw, but before that, WWE decided to do a spot backstage where, you know, she had a little assistant bringing her coffee, and he's knocking on her dressing room door, knocking repeatedly, saying, "Alexa, are you in there? I'm coming in. Here I come. Here I come." And he doesn't hear anything, and as soon as he opens the door, Alexa Bliss is in the middle of getting dressed, and she's topless, and she's got her shirt or her blouse covering her chest. And she was like, "What are you doing in here? Get out of here." And then that was it. They went to commercial, and it was the most random-ass thing ever. I have no idea what the point of that was. It didn't make any sense because the poor guy is saying, "I'm coming in." He's knocking repeatedly, "I'm coming in, I'm coming in, I'm coming in." And Alexa Bliss doesn't say anything. And then she acts pissed when he walked in on her. He's like, all you had to do was say, "Give me a minute," or "Lock the fucking door," or "Don't come in." All you had to do was say anything like that. And she didn't. And then she acts all mad. And when you take into consideration what they're also doing with Mandy Rose on SmackDown, she showed up in a towel last week on the stage. And then this week on SmackDown, which I'll talk about here in a little bit, she's trying to ruin the marriage between Jimmy Uso and Naomi, giving Jimmy her hotel key and dressing in lingerie. And a lot of fans are wondering if WWE is kind of going back to some of these risque type of segments. They might be, but they've already kind of done this too. You know, Lana was involved in similar situations with Enzo. They did something in a hotel room, didn't they? Eva Marie, I think, had a wardrobe malfunction prior to one of her matches, and she was very much viewed as a sex symbol, and they always had her dressed provocatively backstage and shit like that. So I don't know if this is really that much different than stuff that they have already done, but it did have that feel of what they would do in the Attitude Era a lot. How many times was Sable walked in on with her top down, or any other diva or woman in the company at the time? Terry Runnels was always showing her tits or doing something like that back then. And WWE, they don't really portray the women like that anymore. Back in the day, anytime a hot woman would come out there, number one, Jerry Lawler would be having a goddamn stroke, puppies, puppies, and freaking out. The fans would be whistling and catcalling. The women were on the show primarily as sex objects, and that was it. It is not like that anymore. That's not how they're portrayed at all. And when you look at the women on the roster, there are some smoking hot women on that roster. Think about if you would have had one of those 1998 Attitude Era bikini contests with Alexa Bliss and Zelina Vega and some of these beautiful women that are currently on the roster. I mean, what's that gif of Vince McMahon when Stacy Keibler's dancing for him on the table and he's going cross-eyed and he's falling over backwards in his chair? That's what I think of Vince McMahon doing when I think of some of the gorgeous women that are wrestlers currently in the WWE, but unlike back in the day, they're not viewed as just tits and ass. They're not viewed as valets. They're not viewed as eye candy. They're viewed as legitimate professional wrestlers who should be taken seriously, and that's good. But maybe WWE is having trouble resisting the fact that they have a roster full of gorgeous women, and they can't use them, or they're not using them really in any sexual type of way. So maybe this was just a way to realize that a portion of their audience are still the 18 to 34-year-old horny male, and they would like to see Alexa Bliss with her top half down. Now, I don't think you really need that to increase ratings anymore. I mean, back in the day, sex was a very big part of the ratings. You know, those bikini contests back in the Attitude Era, they would get crazy numbers in the Nielsen ratings. I don't know if you really need to do that anymore. WWE, I think, recognizes the fact that they have a ratings crisis and the ratings are as low as they've been in years. So maybe if they're trying to incorporate a little bit of sex appeal onto the show, they think that will help. But as far as it not portraying the women in a good light or anything like that, as long as they don't go overboard with it, I don't have any issue with it. Number one, I thought Alexa Bliss being topless on Raw was out of place and random and felt completely awkward and weird, and it was pointless completely. But at the same time, I don't really have that huge of a problem with it because these women, they know they're gorgeous. Have you ever seen Alexa Bliss's Instagram page or her Twitter page? She has plenty of pictures on there of herself in a bikini. All the women do. They all look sexy. They all look great. They all dress provocatively on their social media, and a lot of them do in the ring as well. And, you know, if you want to look at the other side of the coin, ladies, for those of you listening to this commentary, would you like to see a segment where Seth Rollins is walked in on as he's taking a shower and he's just got a towel over his dick, or some other guy like Drew McIntyre or Elias or another one of these sexy beasts that all the women love? I mean, would you enjoy that? I'm legitimately curious. Would you like to see something like that on Raw? Do you think it has a place? You know, what do you think? So for me personally, as weird as I thought the Alexa Bliss topless spot was, I didn't really think it was wrong or WWE was being too salacious. Compared to what they used to do in the Attitude Era, this is fucking kindergarten shit. I mean, you had Mark Henry hooking up with 80-year-old women and transvestites 20 years ago. If Alexa Bliss is topless for 5 seconds on Raw, I'm not going to start freaking out and thinking that WWE is going back to the gutter. I don't think the women are ever going to be treated like that again. It's going to be interesting to see if WWE follows through with this at all, and if we start seeing more of this on a regular basis on Monday Night Raw. If every single week there's going to be some little sexy spot like this. It might just be a ratings ploy. Who knows what they're doing? But after reading all of the comments on social media and a lot of the fans' opinions on this situation, I'm pretty much in agreement with them. I kind of get what they're saying. Some people are fine with it. Some people feel exactly the way I do. And what I've read so far hasn't even been that bad. Nobody's really freaking out about it. Most people are just kind of like me. They're confused about it. You know what I mean? But moving on now to Alexa Bliss's Moment of Bliss segment. She was scheduled to have an interview with Paul Heyman. He would come out there, but before he did, Alexa Bliss reveals the new women's tag team titles. That's right. They've debuted the tag team titles. They look great. As soon as they were revealed on the live stream, I was loving them. People in the chat were saying, oh, they're ugly belts, but I didn't see that. I thought they were different. The one thing I hate about WWE's belts sometimes, and a lot of what they do, is it all looks the same, and it seems very uncreative, and I really didn't want to see a title belt with a giant, disgusting WWE logo taking up 99% of it. These titles didn't look like that. I thought they looked like women's belts. There was a little bit of a throwback from like the 80s. They kind of resembled some women's belts of the 80s a little bit. I thought they looked beautiful. I thought they would look great on a tag team's waist like the Iconics or like Bayley and Sasha. I liked the looks of the belt, and I'm perfectly fine with the design. Now, another interesting thing about the tag team titles is that Alexa Bliss announced that they would be decided and crowned at the Elimination Chamber. You're going to have a couple of teams from Raw and a couple of teams from SmackDown, I think 3 each. all competing in the Elimination Chamber. The winning team will be the first ever women's tag team champions in WWE. And what this tells me, and what this likely tells all of us, is that the tag team titles are going to be defended on both shows. That was one thing we speculated on when Vince made this announcement and when the rumors were going around about a women's tag team title, is if they're going to have two sets of belts. And I really don't want to see that. I sometimes don't even think the women's division is deep enough for two world titles, much less two tag team titles. So it looks like this will be floated between both shows, and the champions will compete and defend the titles on both shows. And I love that idea because this allows the opportunity for new opponents and new matchups and shit like that. I think having two sets of belts is stupid and they shouldn't do it, and it doesn't look like they are. And I'm actually excited to see who's going to win. Right now, my early favorite would probably be Sasha Banks and Bayley. That's just what I think you would do there, considering their history, how long they've been together. They teased the split, didn't do it. Now they're back on the same page again. Eventually, they're going to have to split. Eventually, they're going to have to feud, but they might have to get a run with the tag team titles first. They both have quite the history and legacy in WWE. They're both former world champions. There's not a better team to put those titles on first than Sasha and Bayley. My number 2 pick would be the Iconics. The problem is the Iconics have been virtually invisible from television for the past several weeks. They finally did make an appearance this week with Asuka and Becky, and I do like them, but to me, they don't have the momentum to be the first ever champions, although that would be a good way to launch them. But considering the resume of Bayley and Sasha and their history, I'm kind of thinking they're going to take the belts first and probably pass it off to another team relatively quickly. After the women's tag team titles were revealed, the Moment of Bliss show got even weirder when she brought out Paul Heyman. He starts talking a little bit about the Fatal 4-Way, puts over Drew McIntyre a lot. And I thought this was a little silly. I thought they should have Paul Heyman come out and do a Moment of Bliss segment next week after he knows who Brock Lesnar is going to be facing, because his interview took place before the Fatal 4-Way main event. So at the time of this, he didn't know who Brock Lesnar was going to be facing. I thought it would make more sense to bring Paul Heyman out next week so he can talk about who Brock Lesnar is facing. Now, he probably still will. He'll probably come out on Monday Night Raw to do something, but I didn't see any point of him being on the Moment of Bliss show because after he was talking for just a couple of minutes, they were interrupted by Otis Dozovich, who just wanders out to the stage, looking around and making all sorts of grunts and all of his funny little noises. Tucker Knight has to come out and rein him in and get him out of there. But he's just screaming and grunting and doing all that weird shit. And then it just ends again with an awkward silence, and they put the mics down and they walk away, and you go right in to the next match. Paul Heyman didn't even need to be out there. I don't know what they're trying to do with Heavy Machinery. One thing that makes me nervous about them is that they're going to turn into a comedy act, because on SmackDown, they were backstage making protein shakes with the New Day and Becky Lynch. Otis Dozovich is extremely entertaining, and he's very charismatic, and he's very funny, but I don't know if I'm really going to wind up liking the way WWE is going to utilize his charisma, if that makes any sense. And we don't even know what brand they're going to land on, because I guess the deal is with all of these new NXT call-ups is that they're going to be appearing on both shows and like basically having tryouts until WWE decides where to place them. That's probably a good idea, because like I've said before, WWE shouldn't really be bringing up anybody from NXT until they have a plan for them. So when they do that, they usually just say, oh, so-and-so's coming up from NXT, let's just put them on Raw, without even thinking it through at all. So at least this way, the creative team gets to analyze these guys and gals on each show and will probably help them decide which show would be the better fit. So I actually like the fact that they're all going to be appearing on both shows for a little while. We saw EC3 on Monday Night Raw as well, very briefly backstage. I completely missed it on the live stream. Everybody in the chat was saying EC3, EC3, and I'm like, where the hell was I? I must have been looking away or something. I didn't even see him there. He also made a brief appearance on SmackDown, and Samoa Joe showed up and kind of looked him up and down. Lacey Evans also made an appearance on both shows, and Nikki Cross debuted on Monday Night Raw in a match. She teamed up with Bayley and Natalya to defeat the Riot Squad. Now, conspicuous by his absence, one of the bigger NXT call-ups that we've all heard about is Lars Sullivan, and he's got some problems. Apparently, he had some sort of an anxiety attack. He has some mental health issues. He was all set to debut a week ago or have a dark match or something like that, and he left the building or he flew home. Whatever the story there is with him, it doesn't sound good. It sounds like he's got a few issues, and there were some rumblings that he was going to be the guy penciled in as John Cena's big opponent at WrestleMania this year. And considering where John Cena is in his career, I don't think John Cena would be going into this match with a guy like Lars Sullivan to beat him. I don't think this would be a Rusev situation or a Bray Wyatt situation. If Lars Sullivan is facing John Cena at this year's WrestleMania, I believe Lars Sullivan is going to defeat John Cena. John Cena's been doing a lot of jobs lately. If the rumors of that potential match are true, that tells me that WWE has, or at least had, huge plans for Lars Sullivan. I wish him the best. I feel horrible here because if this is something that's beyond his control, especially as it relates to mental health, that can really harm his career. You know, WWE, I'm sure, is more than supportive. One example of that is Mauro Ranallo. He's had mental health issues his whole life. He battles depression, and he has the undying support of the wrestling fans. And it's so good to see the wrestling fans kind of get behind someone and said, hey, you know, we're here for you. Keep your head up, that kind of thing. Mauro Ranallo seems like he really appreciates that. And with Lars Sullivan, you know, I just hope he's got people that he can turn to. I hope that he has the help and support that he needs. And as it relates to WWE, I'm sure they're going to be there for him and support him any way they can 100%. But at the same time, they might not be able to risk putting him in a big-time match advertised against John Cena at WrestleMania, your biggest show of the year, and run the risk of him no-showing or having another anxiety attack or something happening to him that prevents him from competing in a match that big. And considering how long he's been in developmental and being groomed for the main roster, the great matches he's had in NXT, I feel terrible that he put in so much time and work and energy, and WWE put so much time and work and energy into developing him, and then his career takes such a bad turn like this. So whatever's going on with him personally, I hope he's all right, and I hope he's getting the help he needs. I hope WWE is working with him, and I hope this is something that's not going to adversely affect his career, because it really truly might. Most important, first and foremost, is the health of Lars Sullivan. If he can get himself healthy and stable, I hope he can resume his career with no negative effects. I really do. So all the best to Lars Sullivan, and I'll be interested to hear where this story goes in the future. Why don't we move on to SmackDown Live now? SmackDown Live was not that eventful, although there were a couple of noteworthy things to come out of that show. Number one was the amazing match between Andrade Cien All Fucking Mas and Rey Mysterio. That's right, Andrade is the latest casualty in the long list of name-shortening victims in the WWE, like Rusev and Big E and Apollo and Cesaro and so many others. WWE has apparently shortened Andrade Cien Almas to just Andrade. That's how he's going to be referred to from now on. I don't understand this at all. I think it's the dumbest fucking thing in the world. I don't know why WWE even thinks that it matters to shorten somebody's name. It's just so stupid. Now, at the same time, Andrade is such a great talent, I'm hoping and I'm assuming that a simple name change is not going to ruin his career. So as annoyed as I am about this decision, as much as I don't understand why WWE always fucking insists on doing this, I really, at the end of the day, don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. I don't understand it, but I don't really care at the same time, if that makes any sense. And with the performance that he gave with Rey Mysterio on SmackDown, I'm almost somewhat half-ass penciling this guy in as a potential Royal Rumble winner. What do you think? Speaking of Daniel Bryan and who he's going to face at WrestleMania, he's got to get past AJ Styles first. Now, they did another concession stand brawl on SmackDown. Bryan was on TV last week, cutting a hell of a promo in the concession area. AJ Styles does the same thing this week to Daniel Bryan, but Daniel Bryan, dressed as a fan, winds up attacking AJ. They start brawling all through the concession area, and AJ winds up putting Daniel Bryan through a table. Now, considering that this Royal Rumble is at Chase Field, it's in a big setting, and the build to this match has seen a lot of brawling around the arena, there's probably time to add a stipulation to the championship match at the Royal Rumble. I would not be surprised at all if they add falls count anywhere, no disqualification, something like that. Also, Chase Field is a baseball stadium. Daniel Bryan did an interview recently where he speculated that the wrestlers might be making their entrances through the dugout and making the best out of this unique setting that they have at Chase Field. And there's also a pool, like a swimming pool, way out in the outfield somewhere of Chase Field where people can buy tickets and hang out and, I don't know, go fucking swimming during the game, I guess. But the fact that that pool is there and the fact that these guys have been brawling all over the arena recently on SmackDown Live, it makes me wonder if someone's going swimming at the Royal Rumble. So if they make this a Falls Count Anywhere match or something like that, one of those guys can wind up being thrown in the pool. Maybe both of them can be thrown in the pool. They're in there trying to drown each other or some shit. I don't know. It might be fun. And plus, if you add a stipulation here, it might be a way to protect AJ. It might be a way to allow AJ Styles to lose without having to get beat clean or pinned in the middle of the ring or anything like that. If it turns out to be a Falls Count Anywhere match and Daniel Bryan cheats or gets some help from somebody else and winds up pinning AJ Styles in the swimming pool, then, it's not going to make AJ Styles really look like a chump, and AJ can still go on to WrestleMania to have a really high-profile match with somebody on the SmackDown brand. But regardless of what they do at the Royal Rumble and how they do it, I think that Daniel Bryan needs to retain and will retain. AJ had that long run, held the belt for a year. To put it back on him now going into WrestleMania wouldn't make a whole lot of storyline sense in my opinion. So I think Daniel Bryan needs to remain WWE champion going into WrestleMania. That's what I want to see. As far as what else we saw on SmackDown, nothing too crazy. Becky and Asuka had a little run-in. There was a promo in the ring, and then the Iconics came out to interrupt them. And watching this, I was thinking, well, here we go. Just like Sasha and Ronda, they're going to put Becky and Asuka together in a tag team to destroy the Iconics. But much to my delight, they didn't. They actually refrained from doing that. Instead, Becky and Asuka each had one-on-one matches. I think Becky took on Peyton Royce, tapped her out, and then Asuka was watching at ringside during the whole thing, and then she wanted to wrestle Billie Kay after that. I did mention the risque segment on Raw with Alexa Bliss being topless, kind of doing the same thing on SmackDown with Mandy Rose. Mandy Rose has this idea that she wants to ruin the marriage between Jimmy Uso and Naomi. She showed up wearing the towel last week on SmackDown. This week, she sends Jimmy Uso a little present, and inside is a hotel room key and a card saying "Love Mandy" or whatever. And Jimmy Uso shows up at the hotel room. Mandy's sitting in the chair, and she undoes her robe, and she's wearing some lingerie. And Jimmy Uso says, "We can't do this," and there's some funny camera angles, too. And eventually, Mandy Rose just tells Jimmy Uso her whole plan. She says, "I hate your fucking wife. I want to make her life miserable, and I want to ruin her life." And that's when Jimmy walks away and opens up the hotel room door, and Naomi barges in to attack Mandy Rose. The two of them fight around the hotel room. So Mandy Rose trying to get in the middle of Jimmy and Naomi's marriage seems to be failing, especially since she revealed her entire plan. If she really has some long-term plan to destroy these two, you don't tell them what your plan is going to be. I don't know if they should go any further with this. I really don't want to see them have Jimmy cheat on Naomi. I'd really rather not have them go down that road, but I think this will likely just be a Mandy and Naomi match at some point, some grudge match or some brawl. They'll get into it on SmackDown or an upcoming pay-per-view, and I think WWE, on the surface, it looks like they have some pretty big plans for Mandy Rose. And so far, I like her too. I got nothing against her right now. I think she's doing a good job. They also had the big Shane McMahon birthday party on SmackDown Live where The Miz was giving Shane a bunch of presents. Apparently he turned 49 years old. Wow, Shane McMahon is almost 50. That's insane. They were then interrupted by The Bar, which wound up leading to a one-on-one match between Miz and Sheamus. Shane McMahon even does the big Van Terminator or the coast-to-coast move with the cake in the face of, I don't know if it was Sheamus or Cesaro, I can't remember. Pretty fun little segment there, but I was surprised that all that stuff was the main event. And again, Shane McMahon and The Miz have a tag team title match with The Bar at the Royal Rumble. It's very possible and very likely that the two of them are going to win the tag team titles. I think that they are. And one would assume that this is going to be a WrestleMania match, right? I mean, am I completely wrong there? But it feels like The Miz and Shane McMahon are going to go one-on-one at WrestleMania. You have to do that. I thought that it was going to be The Miz and Daniel Bryan somehow, but he seems to be all obsessed with being Shane McMahon's tag team partner. You know, you got the Royal Rumble coming up. Why doesn't The Miz want to be involved in that? I don't know. He still might be. I don't know if the participants in the tag team title match are going to compete in the Rumble or not. But you would think with WrestleMania season now here, if you are a talent on the roster, your main goal should be to try to get into that Royal Rumble match so you have a chance to go into WrestleMania and face the champion. But The Miz doesn't seem to give a shit about that. All he wants to do is dick around with Shane McMahon. So that leaves the Royal Rumble card as follows. This thing is pretty much set. We've got the United States Championship on the line, Rusev defending against Shinsuke Nakamura. We've got the Cruiserweight title on the line in a Fatal 4-Way match, Buddy Murphy defending against Akira Tozawa, Kalisto, and Hideo Itami. We got the SmackDown tag titles on the line, The Bar versus Shane McMahon. SmackDown women's title on the line, Asuka defending against Becky Lynch. Raw women's title on the line, Ronda Rousey defending against Sasha Banks. The Universal title on the line, Brock Lesnar defending against new opponent Finn Balor. The WWE title on the line, Daniel Bryan defending against AJ Styles. The 2019 Women's Royal Rumble match and the 2019 Men's Royal Rumble match. That is your card currently for the Royal Rumble. There might still be time to add one more match. I don't know if the Raw tags are going to be on the line. I don't know if they're going to book Lashley in an Intercontinental title defense at the Royal Rumble. We might get one or two more, but for the most part, this thing is looking pretty set, and I'm not hating it. You know, that Brock Lesnar and Finn Balor match is going to be fun. Asuka Becky is going to be fun. Ronda Sasha is going to be fun. The Rumble matches are always fun. We know what Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles can do. This is going to be a fun pay-per-view. I'm excited for it. So that is going to wrap it up for me for this week. I got to get out of here. Thank you so much for hanging out. Let me know all of your ideas and your predictions and what you think might take place between now and the Royal Rumble and going into WrestleMania. It should be a really interesting time, and I'm looking forward to it. You guys take care of yourselves. I will catch you on Monday for my live Monday Night Raw watch along. I'll talk to you real soon. Until then, peace.
This has been a Good Mic Work Commentaries production. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube at youtube.com/GoodMicWork. Follow Greg Morgan on Twitter at GoodMicWork and visit GoodMicWorkCommentaries.com for all the latest podcast and video content.